Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Game. This is Going for Gold, our U.S. Women's National Team focused Olympics podcast, bringing you all things Olympics. I'm Sam Mewis, and we're here today to get ready for the U.S. Women's National Team's first Olympic game tomorrow against Zambia. I am so thrilled and thankful to be joined by my moral compass, my sanity check, my friend, World Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, defender for the Portland Thorns, co-host of Good Vibes FC, Becky Sauerbrunn. Thank God you're here.
I mean, Sammy, ditto my friend. You're like my introverted security blanket. Everything is just a little less scary when you're around.
Becky, I literally feel the exact same way. So I'm really glad that we're doing this together. So like I said, this podcast is Going for Gold, a podcast that will drop the day before every U.S. Women's National Team game throughout this Olympic tournament. This podcast is presented by our good friends at Allstate, proud supporter of U.S. soccer and the women's game.
So I get that this is not good vibes, but dare I say that this podcast could be nicknamed Great Vibes?
Becky, I love that so much. Great Vibes is just the new vibe. I'm so excited, Becky, because it's finally time for the Olympics. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that I've added my Olympics medal to the bookshelf behind me because I wanted to be more like Becky during this tournament.
Where'd you find it?
It was in the basement in a box.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. I did move recently, but I found it now, and now it's out on display.
Excellent. Now we can be twins.
Not being used as a coaster. That reminds me, remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. In addition to these podcasts, which will drop before every U.S. Women's National Team game day during the tournament, we'll also be going live on our YouTube channel after each game, right at the final whistle. We have some incredible co-hosts who will be joining me throughout the Olympics. Obviously, we have Becky, but we also have Midge Purse, Georgia Stanway, Christy Mewis, Roger Bennett, and maybe even more of your favorite players. So stay tuned on our podcast feed, our YouTube channel, and our social media for news and updates on the latest women's game content. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a longtime listener, what's up, fam? Thank you all so much for being here. Okay, Becky, so besides watching soccer throughout the Olympics, what sport are you most excited to watch?
I am really intrigued by the addition of breaking, or like as we kind of know it as breakdancing. And I was doing a little bit of research because I was like, how do you like objectively grade and give results based off this? And so I was like doing a deep dive, like learning all the terminology. There's a master of ceremonies. There's a DJ that plays random music. And literally it's just like one-on-one battles. And I'm like, that is so cool and so different. And I'm just really like looking forward to watching a new sport. I think they did it at the Youth Olympics and it was such a hit that they brought it to the Summer Games. And, you know, Sammy, I was also thinking that I have a suggestion for the Olympic Committee.
Oh,
I really think that they need to bring in just an average person to attempt the event that we're about to watch, just so that we have a comparison to see like how truly elite these athletes are. Like how funny and what amazing content would that be?
Would you sacrifice yourself to go and be the normal person to do breaking?
Can you imagine? I would serve as a great comparison to like elite to absolutely terrible. So yeah, I will volunteer as tribute.
Breaking is going to be so cool. That is such a good idea. I volunteer as the normal person to go and show swimming. Like here I am thinking I'm like this great swimmer. Which I'm really, really excited to watch swimming, by the way. It starts on July 27th. But Becky, did I tell you about the race that I just did?
Like a competitive race? Like not in your mind race, but actually
it was
you're
real.
Up against somebody.
It was real. Well, it wasn't like a race. It was my husband Pat and I did a triathlon and I didn't do the run. I just did the swim and bike section, but I like swam like against people in a lake.
In a lake?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How'd you do?
And then I hopped out and I got on my bike and I rode 14 miles and it was like this little sprint race and it was like so fun.
Are you going to do more?
I would love to do more. I didn't have a road bike, which was like so silly. The bike really slowed me down because I just have a hybrid and other people really had like pretty intense bikes. But I feel like it was really, really fun to do something competitive again. I have been swimming so much and biking so much as like my workouts ever since I stopped playing. And they've been like two of my main forms of exercise. And so getting to like go to an event and do it, like my parents came to watch and they were like cheering for me.
I love that.
I know. It was really, really cute, but it definitely like turned my like competitive brain back on. So I'm sitting here thinking like, I don't know, maybe I'll get really into swimming. Katie Ledecky, watch out 2028 Sam Mewis swimming.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Yeah, I love swimming, and the race was really, really fun, and I was proud of how I did. So I wanted to share that.
Well done, Sammy.
Thanks.
I'm proud of you. All right. So what are your plans for watching soccer?
I know. I guess we have to get into how we're going to watch soccer. First of all, I need to say I'm so happy about the schedule. The times on the East Coast are so ideal for me. And I just keep remembering during the World Cup last year, I was setting my alarm, you guys, for 1:45 in the morning to get up and watch these games and do these live streams. So my plan to watch soccer is to just be home, normal time, on the couch. The games are at 11, 1, and 3. I'm going to have a nice maple ice latte in my hand, and I'm clocked into work. What could be better?
I mean, multiple maple ice lattes, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember watching that Sweden quarterfinal from 2023. I was on the road. Klingenberg was my roommate. I'm under the covers with my headphones in, just trying to silently watch this match. And then it goes into PKs, and Kling and I both make noises, and we're uncover ourselves, and we're like, "Are you watching? Are you watching?" So then we started just watching together. But I'm so glad that these are at better times. I will have training, so I'm going to have to definitely record and then just have nobody talk to me until I get home so that I can watch.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, I will try not to spoil anything for you, but I'm going to be watching in real time. Before we get into talking about this USA versus Zambia game, which we're going to get to, as this is going to be a real test for our first game, I wanted to reflect a little bit on our last Olympics experience together in Tokyo in 2021. Do you have a lasting memory from that tournament? Is there a story that you're kind of finding that you're still telling people over coffee from that Olympics?
I think it's more a lasting feeling. And, Japan had very strict COVID protocols. So we were not allowed out of the hotel unless we were traveling to practice. And so we would just eke out every single minute that we could be outside. And I just really remember before the bronze medal match, it was kind of dusk. We were in a really cool field. There was a really nice background. And we were just sitting together, just talking and kind of soaking in the moment, because we knew this group was never going to be the same group to be together again. And do you remember those electrolyte popsicles? Because it was so hot in Japan. Yeah. So we had a team chef, and they made just homemade popsicles, and they were so good. So we would just sit around and listen to music and eat these popsicles.
For an hour after training. We'd just be sitting there listening to music, eating freeze pops with electrolytes in them.
Yeah. So it's a bittersweet vibe, but I still very much remember it fondly.
I know. I actually pulled up a picture from that very day because I remember it was such an oddly peaceful moment of we had lost, but we had this other chance to kind of rectify it in the bronze medal game. And we were, I don't know if you remember this, Becky, but we were training at this field with windmills all around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember Rose and Sonnet and everybody made me go and pose with the windmills as if I was also a windmill.
Naturally, yeah.
Of course, because that makes so much sense. And so I pulled up a picture. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it. Next time, if you're just listening on audio, you'll have to watch this on YouTube next time. But I remember that too, Becky. And I think we took a really difficult moment in losing the semifinal, and we turned it into a really nice moment as a team. And then we were able to come back and win the bronze medal, which we now both have within arm's reach.
Exactly. So true, Sammy. So true. So why don't we now get into the USWNT?
Yes, please. Okay. I'm going to start us off with kind of a tough subject. So obviously the US team had kind of a problem. There was a lack of finishing in the 2 send-off games for our team. In the first game, we beat Mexico 1-0. We had 17 shots, 6 of them were on target, but we scored just 1 goal. Then we tied Costa Rica 0-0. In that game, we had 26 shots, 12 of them were on target, but we scored no goals. And we also had 16 corner kicks. So this lack of goals is kind of the elephant in the room. It's kind of the thing that people are talking about. And I hate being negative about this team, but we need to discuss it. Are you worried about our lack of scoring in those 2 send-off games, Becky?
I think first off, I just want to give kudos to Costa Rica, because that was a defensive masterclass. I texted Rocky Rodriguez because I used to play with her on the Thorns and just had to say, like, good job. Like, your team defensively was so disciplined. They were throwing their bodies at everything. And that's what it takes to keep the US off the scoreboard. And so I would be more worried if we weren't generating good chances. And so I was looking at the XG for our game, and it was 3.18, which is extremely high. And it shows we're in very dangerous spaces. And XG, for any soccer nerds out there like me, it's expected goals, and it's a metric that's used in soccer to assign a numerical value to each shot that's taken. And that number is the likelihood of that shot going in. So, like, let's say you're taking a shot at the 6-yard line and there's only the goalkeeper.
Okay.
It's like a 0.6. That's what that shot would be allocated. Like, I'm just saying off the top of my head. So there's a 60% chance that shot should go in.
Okay.
And so throughout the match, all the locations of the shots, the distance of the shot, how many defenders are in the way, the angle, like all those things are assigned a value, and then they're added up. And so at the end of the match, like this Costa Rica one, we had one of an XG of 3.18, which is extremely high. So if we weren't generating those chances, I would be more worried.
Why do you think we had an expected goals of 3.18 but 0 goals?
That is the last bit of the puzzle, and that it could be an off day, or it could just be that can we find even better A quality chances? So there's, a range: A quality, B quality, C quality. Can we get from taking the B quality, which are the half chances with the low allocation values, to maybe finding those higher values? So can we slip somebody in who's in a slightly better position than the one I was going to be in if I took the shot?
I see. Okay. Well, I feel like there was a good amount of time in between that Costa Rica game and this first game that we have coming up against Zambia. So I imagine that final piece, that last bit of sharpness, is exactly what this team is working on. I also don't want to forget, this team has only had like a handful of training sessions under Emma Hayes. New head coach. They've only had 4 games, just a couple of camps. So I'm not shocked that it wasn't perfect. Like, Emma Hayes is such an incredible manager, but to implement every single thing that you want to implement and have it all come to fruition in just 4 games is a really big ask. So there are definitely positives to take away. Like you said, Becky, the number of chances created, the expected goal statistic. Is there anything that you make of this kind of narrative in the media that this lack of goals is the same issue that's haunted us in the past, like especially at the World Cup last summer?
I feel like that was also the narrative going into 2015. And then look what happened there. And then our defense was the narrative in 2019. And we only gave up 3 goals, which is exactly the same numbers we gave up in 2015. So I don't know if you remember going into 2019, but the criticisms for the back line, I mean, they were like, this defense is shaky. You have converted forwards playing fullbacks. You have a new center back pairing with Becky and Abby, a keeper who hasn't been truly tested. And then Alyssa was basically like, hold my beer. I'm going to win this whole thing for us. And so, like, Kelly and Crystal were instrumental for us. So it's just
you and Abby were like holding it down at center backs and distributing and defend. Like, our defense was our team in 2019. Sorry. Like, love us.
So true. So I just feel like the narratives to the run-up don't often reflect what actually becomes the narrative at the tournament, because the tournaments, they're just different beasts, and you never know what actually is going to become a topic of concern.
For sure. I think something else that strikes me about the outside perspective is that I'm aware of how little we know from the outside. Like, when I hear the team in the media, or I hear Emma in the media, like, that's not everything. Like, we don't know what the internal conversations are. We don't know what is being discussed in meetings, at training sessions. We don't know how everybody's really feeling. The players and Emma can tell us their media prepared statements and what they're focusing on, but that might just be like barely scratching the surface of what's really going on in camp. I wanted to share, after the Costa Rica game, head coach Emma Hayes said, we're creating more and more high quality chances, and we're getting more numbers into the key areas. We're getting more touches in the key areas. The last part is the hardest part. If we didn't create situations, I might say something different. So Becky, she's saying exactly what you are. That last bit of scoring the goal it will come, but all these chances that we're creating are a really good sign.
Well, I'm glad I'm not super far off from that. And I will say, like, I did hear that there was a lot of criticism and commentary on Audi Field and that there have been a lot of events. And so the field was not in the greatest condition. And to that, I just want to say this team won a monsoon game against Canada at the Gold Cup earlier this year. So field conditions are not an excuse. Costa Rica had to play on the same field. And this team knows that you just have to deal with the things that are in your control or they're going to start controlling you. Like, you have no say over the field condition. You have no say over the weather, over the refs. Let that be and just control what you can control.
Right. And like, not to beat a dead horse, but the other thing with this lack of scoring, Becky, is we're all going on and on about how this forward line of the U.S. women's national team is so good. Like, this was the hardest position on this roster to make. We have the biggest names, the best players, the most informed players, Mal Swanson, Trinity Rodman, Sophia Smith, Lynn Williams, Jaden Shaw. We're hearing these names and praising so much the talent on this forward line, but how are we not scoring goals? So I think just one more time, I want to hear from you, like, what goes into a team being in good scoring form? What are some of those factors?
So I think for me, I think it's finding the right balance of individual brilliance and link up play. So all those forwards you just named, they are such one-on-one threats. And when the opportunities arise, like, yes, let them cook, let them be in those battles. But on the flip side, defenses are smart and they're gonna put numbers behind the ball. And so then it is, how can you link up and set the next play, the next person up? And so I think of like Mal Swanson and the number of defenders that kind of have to be drawn to her to defend. And that is just leaving open players and open spaces. And I think a team in really great scoring form are the ones that can identify when those open spaces get free and being able to play those balls into those spaces.
Yeah. So you mentioned Mal, and it kind of leads me to my next question. Who do you think is most likely to kind of break us free from this scoring drought? Like, do you see Mal as the player who's going to like lead us to this oasis of goals that we're seeking?
I do. I mean, I have talked about this also on Good Vibes. I just think so highly of Mal, and she's such a clinical finisher and she can take over games. And so we also in soccer, I think, often talk about like the floodgates will open if you just get that first one. And I do think Mal can be the gatekeeper to that.
I love that. I know. I feel like Mal has just like unlocked something, and it's been showing up with her club team, the Chicago Red Stars, and for the U.S. women's national team as of late. She has come back from this injury and she just seems to be in such great form, playing with such joy. So I feel similarly. I feel like Mal is such a key player for this team. But I want to put the scoring aside, and I actually want to ask you about another element of our attack, the midfield. So Kat Macario was dropped from the roster, sadly, due to knee irritation. She was replaced with Lynn Williams, who's a totally different style of player and not really a direct replacement as a midfielder. Kat was technically listed as a midfielder. She's kind of like a 10, false 9, central technical player. So the team is looking a little bit different now, Becky, than it was just a couple of weeks ago. How do you think this change with losing Kat will affect our midfield?
Yeah, I think I really appreciate how Kat plays. She's a playmaker who's also very, very good back to goal, which I think is really important as a 10. She sits in really good spaces and really links the play between the midfield and the forward line. I do think that Jaden Shaw can fill that role similar to what she does in San Diego. And we also know that Rose Lavelle is also a key player to link the lines. I think her style is a little bit different from Kat in that I think she likes to drive with the ball into those spaces often, which can be super effective against the right defensive setups. And this will go back to us always harping on versatility will be huge and the name of the game for the midfielders that do need to fill that role.
I know. The last couple of weeks, I feel like I've only been saying one thing, and it's versatility. But losing Kat, like, obviously cuts down on our depth in the midfield a little bit, and that's where that versatility comes into play. Like, luckily, we have other players on our roster that can fill in. So without Kat, we technically only have 4 midfielders: Sam Coffey, Corbin Albert, Lindsay Horan, and Rose Lavelle. But Jaden Shaw, Emily Sonnet, Crystal Dunn, those players can slot into different positions on the field as well. I think that the loss of Kat Macario makes the presence of Rose Lavelle, who is our Allstate player to watch for this U.S. women's national team, all the more important. Like, she becomes so vital to this team.
As someone who's played with Rose in the midfield and against her in the midfield, how would you describe Rose as a player?
I am like Rose's biggest fan. Rose she's fast, she's creative, she's technical. She's a 10, but she's really good out wide. She's left-footed. She gets on the ball in between the lines. She can turn and dribble. When I say in between the lines, I mean she's behind the opposition's midfield, but she's in front of their back line. So that positioning really asks a lot of questions of the other team, like who should be stepping to her when she gets the ball. Then when she does get the ball, her on ball, dribbling at speed, her kind of shiftiness, her ability to change direction, her distribution and vision. She can send a long ball. She can chip a ball over the back line. She can backheel a ball. She has an incredible knack for creating goal scoring opportunities for herself and her teammates. And it makes her just like so difficult and annoying to defend, but she is the magical one to watch. Like, everybody I watch a game with is like, we can't wait for Rose to get the ball. Rose is also one of the most disciplined players that I've ever gotten to play with. And for such a creative mind, I feel like that's really rare. She does the defensive work too. She's so great in defensive transition. But her magic is just like, you just can't deny how enjoyable it is to see her dribbling. Her footwork, her speed, her vision, they're all unmatched. And she's just like a rare skill set.
I'm so glad that you added the defensive piece because I really appreciate that about Rose. She's got a real aerial presence and really isn't hesitant at all to like huck her body into tackles. And she's so fit. I remember, I think it was like in Algarve, and we were both doing the beep test together. And it was like she was gliding through it and was barely breathing. And I was like, hands and knees, like I'm dying. And she's like, oh, I can go for 50 more if I needed to.
Yeah. That defensive transition ability to like sprint back in transition and slide tackle the ball. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've turned to start running back in defensive transition and she's zoomed right past me. And I'm like, well, they put us
That's
together.
going to be on the video.
Yes. But then also they put us together for a reason because you can do this and I can't. Can you tell us as a defender what it's like to try to defend her skill and speed when she has the ball?
Oh yeah, it's super annoying. It's a pain in the ass because like as a defender, your job is basically to try to usher the player into the space you want them to go. So I'll be like, oh good, I've got her going this way. And she'll do this super dynamic cut or pullback and she's going in that opposite direction before I even have like my feet set to like turn, or she'll just like meg you and just completely take you out of the play. It's kind of like you're just do like damage control if you can.
I know. I would always, whenever we'd be in tight spaces together and I'd be defending her, I would always just have to like foul her because I was like, otherwise I can't keep up. That is typical Rose Lavelle for you. So annoying to play against. So fun to play with. That's why she's our all-state player to watch. But okay, Becky, I want to take a quick moment to talk about how important this first game is. I feel like the U.S. women's national team always talks about making a statement in the first game of a big tournament, and it can really set the stage for not only how you feel as a group moving forward, but like how the other teams in the tournament feel about you. And I always go back to our first game against Thailand at the World Cup in 2019.
I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful thing. I just have this very vivid image of Alex Morgan counting each of her 5 goals on her hand. And I was like, that's legendary.
I know. We ended up winning that game 13-0. I also have vivid memories of the celebrations, but I remember those celebrations like they were not they're not diminished in my memory at all by some of the media criticism that we got. Like they were truly the happiest moments. And I feel like I scored my first World Cup goal. Rose scored her first. Lindsay scored her first. Alex scored 5 goals. We had subs coming on the field and scoring goals. And the joy that we experienced, I feel like set us up to be like, it's us against the world. If people aren't going to be happy for us in this joyous of a moment, then we're just in this bubble together. And I also feel like 13-0, yeah, like it sent a message to the whole tournament. We're not messing around here. Like we will score as many goals as humanly possible. So the U.S. women's national team is about to have their first game, their opportunity to set the stage for themselves, for their own joy, for this message that they want to send the rest of the tournament. What are you looking for, other than the scoreline, as far as like tangible signs that this U.S. team is heading in the right direction?
I think when a team can match us physically, and I can really only think of like maybe a few teams that can do that, I know we're in really good form when we rely on our skill and our tactical prowess to break teams down. So instead of one-on-one duels all over the pitch, are we combining with others to break pressure? Are we rotating players to get into different and surprising positions? Are we varying up how we attack in the final third? When I see that, I'm like, we're cooking.
So like using skill, thoughtfulness, using tactical smarts and strategy instead of relying on, yes, we have really incredible 1v1 and speedy wingers who can get in behind. Like you want to see us thinking our way through the game.
Exactly. Like there's the old saying, like the ball will always move faster than the person. Like that's what I want to see.
Well, so this is also Emma's first major world tournament as a national team coach. This is her first game too. She went undefeated in her first 4 games with this US team, but I think the performance of the team in this first Olympics game is another opportunity for like a first impression with Emma. Like there's more pressure in this moment. It's not in the US. It's like this is really another huge moment for her. And so I think that the team and Emma can really stamp their intentions on the rest of Group B and on the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. It is an extremely difficult group. I mean, all the groups are difficult. Every point matters. And digging yourself out of a hole from the first game adds a lot of physical and psychological load, like emotional load onto you. So you kind of want to maintain great vibes for as long as possible in these kind of competitions.
Great vibes, Becky. I love the placement of that. So if you're new here to the women's game, this is our Olympics content, but Becky, Lynn Williams, and I have another weekly show that covers all things women's soccer. It's called Good Vibes FC. We may be writing a petition to have that changed to Great Vibes FC. The women's game also has an interview show called Friendlies, where we speak with the biggest names in women's football. Both of those shows will resume after the Olympics, so make sure you're subscribed and following along so that you can be with us after this tournament as well. Okay, Becky, let's get into what we know about Zambia. In my interview at Webster Hall with Emma Hayes just a couple of weeks ago, Emma actually called Zambia the best in transition in the world. And it's actually not that big of a surprise when you have a forward like Barbara Banda. Of course, you're going to try to get her the ball as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Barbara Banda is the main focus of the Zambia team, and for good reason. She's currently tied in the NWSL Golden Boot race, having scored 12 goals in 12 games, which is unbelievable. I mean, one of the keys to Orlando Pride's success this season, she came from Chinese Super League's Shanghai Shangli, but has been known on the world stage really since she scored back-to-back hatties in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, becoming the first ever footballer to do so. Her scoring ability, Sam, it's like uncanny. Like obviously I've played Orlando, we've cut film. I've watched her, like the ball just seems to seek her out as opposed to her seeking the ball out. So misclearances, crosses, they all just seem to find her. And that's such a testament to a forward in great goal scoring form.
I know. I feel like she has just come in and like blown up this idea that I've had forever. Like scoring goals is just so hard. It's the hardest thing to do. And she's like, is it? She's been such a force in the NWSL this season. Zambia has only competed in 2 major world tournaments so far, that 2020, 2021 Olympics, and then last summer's World Cup. And though they didn't make it out of their group, they did manage a win against Costa Rica.
Yeah, despite their quick rise in FIFA rankings, I did a little research. In 2019, they were 119th in the world. They're currently 64th. Like that is a huge jump.
Yeah.
They're a relatively new presence in world tournaments, sure, but this team is not without their issues. According to The Guardian, Zambia head coach Bruce Mewis is being investigated by FIFA in the wake of multiple sexual assault allegations concerning a player and a FIFA contractor from last summer's World Cup. So despite this ongoing investigation, Mwape has been granted a visa to enter France during the Olympics as Zambia's active head coach.
This is like so horrible. It's hard for me to believe. Bruce Mwape is allowed to coach in France with the team. He just isn't allowed to have private contact with them. So that Guardian article you referenced, Becky, written by Ed Aarons, it explains, quote, It is understood he was initially denied a visa to enter France before the decision was later reversed, with strict conditions imposed on the 64-year-old. They are believed to include stipulations that he will not have private contact with any of the players and that any one-on-one meeting must be conducted in an open place, end quote.
Okay, I've got so many questions about this. Who is protecting the players? Who's making sure these meetings are being conducted in open spaces? Is there a player safety officer put in place either by the Olympic Committee, by FIFA, by the Zambian Federation? Is there a way for players or staff to report anonymously in case something were to happen or something goes wrong? Like, I don't know how this man is allowed to actively coach while there is a current investigation going on. This to me is dangerous and a debacle.
I don't understand how it's gotten through this many organizing committees. Multiple humongous organizations have an obligation to protect these players from being exposed to the subject of an ongoing sexual assault investigation. Those organizations include FIFA, who has been investigating him for 11 months, the IOC, the Olympic Committee, who of course have an obligation to protect the athletes competing in their tournament, and the Zambian Federation, who went to the IOC and said that it was too late to find a replacement. There is nothing more important than the safety of the players, including the team's success in the tournament. The safety of the players is way more important than that. I find it shocking that this has been allowed by all of these organizations. But putting all of this aside, even though it's really difficult to act like it doesn't exist, these players are the ones who deserve the spotlight here, and I'd like to get back to them. Rachel Kandinanji, who became the most expensive female footballer in the world earlier this year with BFC, paying a reported $788,000 for her transfer fee from Madrid CFF, said this about the growth of the game in Zambia. She said, "I think there is a lot of determination from the players with the help of our federation. The players are more focused on the game, and more importantly, they are doing what they love, which shows on the field. Our parents are now allowing their children to play football, which is widening the pool of talent in the country in the women's game."
Oh, I love that. And I think another player to keep your eye out on is Grace Chanda, who will join the Orlando Pride after the Olympics for Madrid CFF. Chanda is a 27-year-old midfielder and has said that Alex Morgan is her idol, and she wants to have the success that she has had as a player. Welp, that is a great player to emulate. And I guess I'll see you across the lines in the NWSL in a few weeks.
Oh my gosh, I know Orlando is just stacking up the talent.
Are they ever?
I know. Go off Orlando. Another really fun one on this Zambian team is Rachel Ntula. She's actually an alternate on the Zambian squad, but if she makes it onto the field, she could become a two-sport Olympic athlete. She ran track for Zambia in Beijing 2008. The 38-year-old specialized in the 400 meters, and she now plays her club football in the Israeli league as a forward.
That's amazing and also truly terrifying as an opponent. I'm just imagining in my head chasing down a ball and having Sha'Carri Richardson just passing me by.
That is a literal nightmare. I can't even imagine. Becky, so to wrap up this Zambian team, what are you looking for and what kinds of things do you think are going to be interesting to see in between the US and Zambia in this game?
Well, you mentioned earlier that Emma said that this is one of the best transition teams in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think the US is also one of the best transition teams in the world. So these are two teams that thrive in transition. So I think the winning team is going to be the one most organized in transitional defense. So we call it countermeasures. It's how does a team look defensively behind the ball when you're actually the team attacking? Are dangerous spaces occupied? Do we have the right numbers when we need the numbers, especially if they keep forwards high? So we usually say you want +1. So you want more defenders back than attacking players. And so my matchup, the thing I'm looking for most is a more tactical one. So transitional offense versus transitional defense.
That makes a lot of sense. And wouldn't be Becky if she didn't bring in the countermeasures and the transitional defense.
Let's zoom out for a minute and look at the rest of the tournament.
Yeah. So the other game that's going on tomorrow in Group B is Australia versus Germany.
This group is insane. I mean, like I said earlier, all the groups are insane, but that's really what makes these Olympic Games so fun.
I know. The other thing that makes this really fun is that all the games are tomorrow. So it makes it for really simple scheduling on my part, but we're all going to need 2 screens going at once, TV, computer screen on the side. So there are 2 games on at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 2 games on at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and 2 games on at 3 p.m. Eastern time. The other game on this game day that I'm most excited to watch besides the US game is Spain versus Japan.
Oh yeah. Remember Japan beating Spain in the 2023 World Cup 4-0?
Yes.
I remember watching and I was like, I want to watch the highlights again because it was such an amazing game, and to see Japan's goals. And if this game is half as entertaining as that game, it really is a must-see.
I know. I can't believe it's their first game of the tournament, because I have actually had Spain and Japan as 2 of the front runners, like 2 of the teams I can imagine winning this tournament. They have to play each other in their first game. It's such a difficult opponent so early on. There's no easing in. But for us as fans, it's like such a treat. When you just watched those highlights back, what did you notice, and what do you think we should look for in this game tomorrow?
What I'm definitely looking for is watching the fluidity with which both these teams play. And it's the interchanging of positions. It's the way that the player on the ball always has so many options, and how they break high intense pressure by using these options and these angles. It's very nuanced, but very beautiful. And so I think these teams play some of the most beautiful soccer in the world. So I think you're right. Like, this is such a treat for us to get to watch it.
I know. It's really, really incredible. How much do you think we should read into the result? Like, it's the first game of a tournament. It's 2 of arguably the top teams in the tournament. Do you think a strong result either way is kind of like a death sentence for the other team?
Not necessarily. I think it really goes back to the resolve and the resilience of the team that loses. Like, can they bounce back? I mean, Sammy, we can talk about the Tokyo Olympics and how we lost to Sweden 3-0 and how that affected us. And it took us a while to like find our stride again. And so the way the first game goes doesn't necessarily translate to how the rest of the tournament will go, but you do sometimes dig yourself into a hole that is really hard to get out of.
Well, we have so much soccer to watch tomorrow. I am very, very excited to be watching 6 games in one day. I do have one last piece of soccer news for everybody for the day. It came in hot just before we started recording. Reba, I heard that you are a newly crowned soccer tennis champion.
Oh, no, not newly crowned. I am like 3 weeks running crowned. So Klingenberg and I are always on the same team for soccer tennis. And we run the court. Like, it is our court. We are so annoying. People hate to play against us, and we love every second of it.
Oh, you're those 2.
Oh, very much so.
Becky and Kling again. Oh my gosh. Wait, tell us a little bit more about this. When do you play soccer tennis? What's it like? And tell us more about this streak. What are you guys so good at?
Okay, so the rules of our soccer tennis, there's either 2 or 3 players on your team. Today, Sinky joined Kling and I, so it was like this amazing triumvirate of experience.
Yeah, Becky Sauerbrunn, Megan Klingenberg, and Christine Sinclair.
Yeah.
Beat that.
It was, yeah, and we played 4 rounds, and we started at the lowest court. You know how you kind of like, there's a Champions League, so we were at the bottom court, and we worked our way all the way up. And the rules of the soccer tennis, you're only allowed 1 touch. You can have 3 touches per side. The bounce can happen at any time. And so it's just like, we play it match day +2. So our first day back after a day off. And it's just like a fun way to get some touches, get moving, and just get those competitive juices going.
I love that. What's your secret sauce? Like, why are you guys so good together?
I think Kling and I are kind of ruthless. Like, people give really nice serves. I'm kind of like volleying the crap out of it and making that first person have to have like a really great first touch. And Kling usually is the one at the net. And she is just so good at like varying up whether she's like heading it at the person directly, or maybe she side volleys it, or it's just like a little dink over the net. So the other team is just like, what are you guys doing to us?
What are you guys doing to us? Come on.
What are you doing to us?
Come on.
All right. So to wrap this up, let's bring it back to the USA-Zambia game. It's on tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern on USA, Universo, and Peacock. I'll be watching. Sam, give us a prediction.
Yeah, I know. This is a tough one. I'm going high score. Like, look, I have faith in this US team. They're going to score a lot of goals. The scoring drought is going to be over. I think Malpu's going to get a couple of those in there. But I am going 4-2 because Zambia has Barbara Banda. Nobody's been able to stop her yet. The US is going to win. They're going to win decidedly, but it's going to be a high-scoring game. That's my take.
Okay. I'm kind of with you on that. I've got the US winning 3-1. I
A
think
much more measured score. A much more measured score.
well,
I'm getting
it's me.
carried away with my hot takes in my media career, Becky.
I do think that it'll be tied at some point. So I don't know if that's me thinking that Zambia is going to score first and then we're going to go 3 unanswered, or vice versa. But I think 3-1.
Oh my gosh. I am so excited to watch. I'm like a little bit just nervous and excited, but immediately after the final whistle of this USA Zambia game, I will be going live on our YouTube channel with Midge Purse, Gotham FC forward. Make sure you're subscribed to that YouTube channel and that you have the notifications turned on so you don't miss us. This is going to be around 5 p.m. Eastern time as soon as the whistle blows. Also, please subscribe to our podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along with us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads at Women's Game MIB. Becky, you will be back with us in no time. You're joining us for plenty more content throughout this tournament.
Sammy, I really just can't stay away.
Well, I can't either, Reba. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much for being here, and go USA.
Woo!